Welcome to Preparing Your PharmCAS Application. I'm Noemi Lopez, and I'm an admissions counselor for the University of Minnesota College of Pharmacy. This presentation was created to help students through the process of putting together their PharmCAS application and to provide tips from an admissions counselor. Before we get started, I want to let you know a few things. First of all, PharmCAS does change every year, so when you do your application, it might look a bit different than what you see here today. Second, I am not a representative of PharmCAS, but I am an admissions counselor for the University of Minnesota's PharmD program. So what I present is based on what I know from my experience and knowledge of what our admissions committee likes to see on applications. Finally, keep in mind that all pharmacy schools have different preferences, and I'll try to highlight areas in which different schools might like to see different things on your PharmCAS application. The presentation today will focus on these areas. The first is the important sections of your PharmCAS application, and this will be the majority of the presentation. The next will be supplemental applications with a focus on the University of Minnesota's supplemental application. We'll also talk about application timelines so you know how to plan ahead. That will be followed by how to avoid common mistakes and problems, tips for reapplicants, and some resources to help you prepare for pharmacy school. The important sections of the PharmCAS application include your personal essay, references or letters of recommendation, your coursework, work experience, extracurricular experience, and PCAT scores. I'll spend some time on each of these sections. This is the login page for PharmCAS. Students generally start working on the PharmCAS application about a year before they want to enter a pharmacy program. So if you wanted to start in fall of 2016, you would start the PharmCAS in the summer of 2015. Most applicants submit their PharmCAS in the fall or winter. PharmCAS does shut down in April, so any information that you want to save should be done before then. When you log into PharmCAS, this is what you'll see. The middle column contains the important sections that you'll be filling in. The column on the upper right contains the status of different items, including GPA, transcripts, and references. Here, I've highlighted the important sections that we'll be talking about today. We have the test section, coursework, extracurricular, work experience, personal essay, and references. The red dot denotes sections that are required, and the box to the left will be filled in with orange when each section is complete. The first important section is your personal essay, and we're beginning with this section because you can start writing your personal essay even before PharmCAS is available in July. It will probably take you a few months to prepare a strong essay. Your essay should be your story and passion for pharmacy, not a history of your life, but your history of pharmacy. This may include how you got interested in it, what you've done to explore pharmacy, where you see yourself in the future, and your passion for becoming a pharmacist. When writing this essay, keep in mind the supplemental application essays that you'll be writing for the individual schools you're applying to. I've included a link to the supplemental application for the University of Minnesota, which consists of shorter, more specific essay questions. Be sure that you don't repeat the same information that is on your personal essay in these essays. Keep in mind that the admissions committee reads both your personal essays and supplemental essays at the same time. It's a good idea to have many people review your personal essay. You can bring a draft into the writing center at your school and have people you know well read it to make sure it is clearly written and true to who you are. We also offer an online workshop here at the University of Minnesota that will walk you through parts of your essay and how to get it started. At the end of the workshop, you can submit a draft of your essay to be reviewed and receive feedback on. The workshop is free to U of M Twin Cities students and about $30 for all others. Here in the slide, you can see the space where you will copy and paste your essay into your PharmCAS application. Be sure that the paragraph spacing shows up in this box because sometimes when you paste in the text, the paragraphs disappear. Also be sure your essay falls within the character limit of 4,500 characters, including spaces, which is about one page single-spaced. On to the next important section of your PharmCAS application, and this is your references. Here's the page on PharmCAS where you will provide the contact information for each reference. The first tip I have for you is to check the yes box at the top of this form in which you waive your right to see the letter of recommendation. The reason I advise this is because it means your letter of recommendation is unbiased and your letter writer will know that you can't see the letter. Also, when you waive your access, the admissions committee views each reference as more accurate and reliable. For your references, it is best to select people who know you well in a professional sense. So if you took a class from a professor and got an A, but they didn't get to know you well, they probably wouldn't be the best person to write you a recommendation. When you ask a person to write you a letter, be sure to ask if they can highly recommend you. Also, schedule some time to talk to them about the programs you're applying to and what kind of recommendation you're looking for. It is a good idea to provide them with a copy of your resume, personal essay, and perhaps your transcript. Also, let your recommender know that the PharmCAS reference includes 2 parts. They will first be asked to fill out a form with a series of questions about you, and then will be asked to provide comments. It is best if those comments are a full letter of recommendation. So let your references know that they can upload a traditional letter of recommendation in addition to filling out the form. Encourage your recommender to write about all the strengths, qualities, and skills you possess that will make you a great pharmacist. As soon as you fill out the form shown on the previous slide, an email will be sent to your recommender, and this is what that email looks like. I recommend that you give your references plenty of time to write your letter of recommendation, but do provide them with a deadline that is at least a month before when you plan to have a complete application. If the deadline you gave your references is passed, it's okay to send them a reminder email. Once you've designated your recommenders, you'll be able to see them in this section. You can also check on the status of your references here. At the University of Minnesota, we prefer a variety of sources to highlight a variety of your strengths. College professors are good sources, as are work, volunteer, or research supervisors. Do not have any family or friends write letters because they are not acceptable or professional sources. At the University of Minnesota, we require 3 letters, but you can submit up to 4 and they will all be viewed. Every school is a little different, however, and may have specific requirements for the number of references they want or the type of recommenders they require. For example, some schools require one of your references to be from a science professor or a pharmacist. You can check each school's PharmCAS page to see their specific requirements. The next important section is your coursework. Using your transcript as a guide, you will input all courses you have taken after high school or any college level courses you took while in high school. I do recommend doing this with your official transcript in front of you so that the course names and grades are exact. Once you put your coursework in, you'll have official transcripts from each college or university attended sent to PharmCAS. An important thing to note is that you must include courses that you repeated, withdrew from, or failed. Also, even if you took courses at one school and transferred those credits to another school, you do need to put in all the grades you received from the original schools and have all original transcripts sent to PharmCAS. I highly recommend that you carefully proofread through this section to make sure that there are no errors in spelling or grades, because the admissions committee will notice if the grades listed in this section do not match what PharmCAS enters in when they receive your transcript. The last thing you'll enter are planned and in-progress courses. So as you can see here, I entered in a biochemistry course that will be taken during the fall 2015 semester. After you receive grades for your fall courses, you can have them sent to PharmCAS through what's called Academic Update. The next important section is work experience, and this is an entry page for a specific job. You will put in all of your paid work experience into this section. I recommend that you provide a position title and a detailed description of your responsibilities in that job. You should also estimate your total and weekly hours. If you are still planning on working there through the time you're applying to pharmacy schools, you can leave the end date blank. This is the section where all your work positions will show up. I recommend that you do list all jobs you've held, not just pharmacy-related jobs, but all paid work experience. One question I often get asked is, how much pharmacy work do I need to have had? The University of Minnesota does not require pharmacy or healthcare work experience, but most admitted students come in with about 1.5 or 2 years of experience in pharmacy or healthcare, so it does help to make a strong application. The next important section is Extracurricular Experiences. It looks very similar to the work experience page, so for each entry, you'll put in the name of the organization you were involved with, followed by a position title and detailed description of your involvement. And I recommend that in this section you avoid using acronyms, so do write out the full name of each organization. You'll also want to estimate your total and weekly hours. And if you're doing a lot of different kinds of volunteer activities, it's a good idea to keep a journal of those activities, including where you were, what you did, and the number of hours, so that when you're ready to complete this section, you have all the information you need at hand. One question I often get asked about this section is, do I need any supporting documents to prove my volunteer involvement? And the answer is no. We trust that what you put in this section is accurate. This is what your extracurricular list will look like once you have a few entries added. Our admissions committee looks for meaningful, long-term activities where you are helping people. So if you're trying to choose new activities to be involved with, try to pick something that you plan to commit to for several months or several years, and where you're making an impact on people's lives. Also, if you've been involved in different volunteer activities within one organization, you can list them as separate entries. For example, if you were involved with a sorority for 4 years, but participated in Relay for Life each year as part of the sorority, you can list that Relay for Life event separately because it was a different type of event. The extracurricular section is an appropriate place to list any job shadowing you participated in, particularly if it was in the field of pharmacy. Finally, I generally advise against listing any high school activities in this section unless they were very extraordinary. So if you were in sports or the National Honor Society, you would not list them in your PharmCAS application. If it was an activity that was extremely special and outside of the norm for a high school student, you might consider listing it here. The last section we're going to talk about is the test section, and this is where you will designate if you have taken or plan to take the PCAT. You can take the PCAT either before or after you've done your PharmCAS application. When you register for the PCAT, opt to have your scores sent to PharmCAS. If you choose any school that uses PharmCAS, it is the same as choosing PharmCAS as a score recipient. If you are applying to schools that do not use PharmCAS, you would want to have your scores sent to them. You can e-submit your PharmCAS application before your scores are available. So if you want to submit your PharmCAS in August, but don't plan to take the PCAT until September, it's not a problem, and your scores will just be added to your PharmCAS application when they are available. To make sure that your PCAT scores are matched to your PharmCAS application, on your profile page, be sure to input your PCAT CID, which is your PCAT identification number. Wait to e-submit your PharmCAS until you have all information in there that you want. Once you e-submit to your PharmCAS, you are not able to change anything. You can submit your PharmCAS with PCAT scores or letters of recommendation pending. I recommend that after e-submitting, you regularly check on the status of your PharmCAS application, especially if you have pieces missing like PCAT scores. After you e-submit, it takes about 2 to 6 weeks for PharmCAS to process your application. This is important because if you want to have a complete application to meet a certain school's deadline, you'll want to e-submit your PharmCAS application several weeks before the deadline to make sure there is enough time for processing and the school to receive the application. Once you've e-submitted your PharmCAS application, you're ready to work on supplemental applications, and most schools do have a supplemental application. At the University of Minnesota, we post our supplemental application online so you can see the essay questions and work on them ahead of time. When we receive your PharmCAS, we'll send you an email notifying you that you are now able to access the supplemental application and submit it online. Our supplemental application consists of 3 short essays. In the first essay, we ask about your most meaningful volunteer or extracurricular activity. The second asks you about your future career in pharmacy and where you see yourself in 10 years. In these first 2 essays, there may be some overlap in what you address in your personal statement. And while it is fine to expand upon something you mentioned in your personal essay, my main recommendation is that you don't just copy and paste parts of your personal essay into these short essays. The last essay addresses unique factors that contribute to a diverse student body. And in this essay, we'd like you to write about what unique skills or qualities you have and how they will help you serve patients as a pharmacist. Some examples of that are having a unique major, speaking multiple languages, having a different cultural background, or perhaps having experience working with diverse groups of people. Here are some time frames for completing different pieces of your application. The PharmCAS opens in July, and I'd say that the best time to work on this is during the summer, although depending on the schools you're applying to, you could work on it all the way through March. PharmCAS deadlines range from November to March, and the University of Minnesota deadline is February 1st. After you've completed the PharmCAS, you can work on supplemental applications, and most deadlines for those run from August until April. Ours is March 1st. Then you may be invited to interview at different schools, and those interviews are typically offered from September to April. Keep in mind that these timeframes depend on whether a school uses rolling admissions. At the University of Minnesota, the earlier you have a complete application, the earlier you would come to interview. So here's an example of a rolling admissions timeline for the University of Minnesota. Let's say you start your PharmCAS application in July and also take the PCAT in July. You work on your PharmCAS over the summer and e-submit it in September. Then you work on the supplemental application and submit that in October. You would then likely be interviewing in November, about a month later. And then again, in another month, you would receive your admissions decision, so perhaps in December. Again, this is just an example timeline, and it would adjust forward or backward depending on when you complete each step. Now that you know about the important sections of your application and timelines to apply, let's talk about common mistake. The first mistake I often see is errors in spelling, grammar, and capitalization in the personal essay, work, extracurricular, and coursework sections. So I recommend that you carefully proofread through these sections several times to make sure everything looks correct, clean, and professional. Another mistake I often see is grades that are entered incorrectly. An example of that would be if you received a B- in a class, but enter the grade as a B in your PharmCAS application. Then, when PharmCAS receives your official transcript, they'll notice the error, there might be a delay in processing time, and the admissions committee will see the discrepancy between the grade you entered and the actual grade. It might seem like a small mistake, but it is a blemish on your application. So I recommend that you use your official transcript to enter in coursework and double check this section for accuracy. Another mistake applicants make is not entering in all work and extracurricular experience. I recommend that you absolutely enter in all experience, even if it's not related to pharmacy, because it gives the admissions committee a more complete picture of who you are, and it makes a stronger application. Lastly, some applicants submit their PharmCAS either too early or too late. What I mean by submitting too early is that you submit your application before starting a new job or volunteer experience, and then those experiences aren't part of your application. Also, some students submit their applications too late. For example, our PharmCAS application deadline is February 1st. And let's say you wait until that day to submit your application. Well, PharmCAS can take up to 6 weeks to process, so submitting your application on or just before the PharmCAS deadline may result in you missing our supplemental application deadline of March 1st. Lastly, some applicants, especially if they apply early, may not remember what they put on their PharmCAS application by the time they interview. So if you submitted your PharmCAS application in August, but don't interview at a school until December, go back and review what you wrote, because many interviewers may have read your personal essay or looked at your work and extracurricular activity sections. Okay, let's look at some common problems applicants run into. First, some students experience delays due to references, transcripts, or PCAT scores not coming in. You may need to remind recommenders to complete their letters of recommendation and be sure to send in your transcripts early, and then check in with PharmCAS often to make sure that your PCAT scores have arrived. Also, it can be hard to keep track of different school requirements and deadlines. You can use this link and click on School Admission Requirements for information about each school you're applying to. Next, don't procrastinate and give yourself a personal deadline a month before the school's deadline to avoid delays. Remember that PharmCAS takes 2 to 6 weeks to process, so know that schools will not look at your application right after you e-submit it. They will have to wait until PharmCAS has verified your application. One of the last things I want to talk about is reapplying to a school. If you are a reapplicant, you have the option of using your application from the previous PharmCAS cycle as long as you paid the PharmCAS fee. Your other option is to start a completely new PharmCAS application. If you do use the reapplicant option, be aware that you cannot change any information you put into the work, volunteer, or coursework sections. So if there are any mistakes you'd like to correct or details you want to add about a certain position, this might not be the best option. Reapplicants will be required to submit a new personal essay and letters of recommendation. And if you choose this option, you can't later go back and start a new application. So think about your couple of options and know that you have to choose one option or the other. As we wrap up, I'd like to let you know about some resources that we offer to pre-pharmacy students. First, our admissions website contains a ton of great information about our program and the application process. Next, we have online workshops that are free for U of M Twin Cities students and only about $15 to $30 for non-U of M students. The workshops will help you with your personal statement and interviewing skills. We also hold admissions information sessions about once a month. The sessions provide in-depth information about the admissions process and how applications are evaluated. It also includes a panel of current PharmD students. If you're not able to make an in-person session, we also offer an online version. The next resource is our emailing list. You can join our email list to receive important admissions announcements and resources. The University of Minnesota College of Pharmacy has a preview day on both campuses each semester. It's always held on a Saturday, and you can feel free to bring along family and friends. This is a great time to learn about career options in pharmacy, the PharmD curriculum, admissions, student life, and take a tour of the college. We also have a very active Facebook page, so if you like us on Facebook, you'll receive updates about the profession of pharmacy as well as admissions resources. Next, we offer some great online undergraduate pharmacy courses. You don't have to be a U of M student to take these. They're available to anyone who would like to learn more about pharmacy. We also have a YouTube page with videos that highlight some of our students and pharmacists in different career areas. Finally, on here, we have our student bloggers. So if you want to learn about life as a pharmacy student, check out their blog. Thanks for watching this session on preparing your PharmCAS application. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me via phone or email. And good luck with your pharmacy school applications.